Stefan Mihailou, South Shore Press News Director with the Conservative Party Chairman of New York State, Jerry Kassar. Chairman, how are you?
Doing pretty good, thank you. How are you doing?
Life is great. Always good to see you and spend time with you. Let's start with congestion pricing. How huge is that for taxpayers, not just in Suffolk County, but across New York State?
Well, it's actually about 12 counties. It probably represents 13 to 14 million New York State residents and also represents a lot of New Jersey people who really were uptight with this. It was a horrible, horrible program that only the progressives, the left wing, and people who had jobs with the MTA thought should be occurring. How it negatively impacted seniors, how it was taking the state in the wrong direction, and how it was in the early stages showed miserable results. Doesn't even get to the point that it was a $9 tax every time you went into the city. Having the president keep his promise and so effectively knock this out of the box, to me, was one of the more important promises that he's kept as the new president for my community. And he's really, in many ways, a New Yorker, and he saw what was going on.
Yeah, I'm always just befuddled at people who are surprised at President Trump, who basically is doing what exactly he said he was. Like, he was the guy whose catchphrase was, "You're fired," and now he's reducing the government. He said he was going to get rid of the widely unpopular congestion pricing tax, and he did so. So what do you think happens next?
First of all, I think he wins on this, just the way he did it using this program. But he has other way. There's no way this is coming back. If they don't knock it out this way, you're going to have Lee Zeldin come up with something that involved an environmental study that should have taken place that didn't, because Biden was doing everything in his power to cause this to occur. If it doesn't happen that way, it's going to happen through some threat to something else that the federal government spends money on in New York City. This is something that I think a lot of New Yorkers have lost sight of. New York is not like Florida or Texas. Those are states where their governments do not depend on the federal government. Years upon years ago, New York State decided that it was just going to be a ward of the federal government. So when you do what New York State did, and the federal government says you're going to stop, New York State will have to stop because they're so dependent on the federal government for most of their funding. And that is the truth here. And that's why this is going to be gone, and it is going to stay gone.
So let's get down to brass tacks from a political perspective, Chairman. And obviously, you've been around the block a long, long time. People who love congestion pricing are the radical progressives who want to punish people who drive a car, or the big bloated bureaucracy of the MTA. So why would Kathy Hochul push something that's so unpopular?
Well, I think Kathy Hochul is always looking for a wedge in the New York City progressive area because she's always worried about a primary. She is a weak governor, and I think her weakness lends her to not lead, but to follow. And she's following those that she thinks she can most easily associate with. I mean, for her to associate with the Republicans and the conservatives and other New Yorkers who thought this was a terrible, terrible program would just undermine her base. And frankly, she has no choice but to fight with President Trump. And she's, where he spends his days talking about winning, she should be learning how to lose better.
Well, I mean, look at it. You at your statewide conference, you had Mike Lawler, congressman who may be a potential opponent. Bruce Blakeman from Nassau County, another potential opponent. It seems as though the stars are aligning for 2026 when it comes to having a Republican with conservative backing who can win that governor's race.
Yes, I think that's true. I think that she's going to be a weak incumbent. It is a pretty heavily Democratic state, but we are clearly not a blue state. We're a purple state. We always now have opportunities. We have to work harder to take advantage of them. But she has been such an awful governor that she's giving us even greater opportunities. There are a lot of people in New York, in my view, that feel a need to replace her as governor, which is a little different than saying, well, we would like to vote for a different person. They feel a need to get rid of her because she's just doing such an awful job.